Let's go do this. Well, I'm going to turn this thing on, right? Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah. Not too loud? I don't like how I sound. Okay. I don't like how I look on video either, but I guess there's no choice, is there? So I'll just keep going. I know how it is this time of semester. It is. We're getting swamped, and so I appreciate everybody being here. Anybody who, hey Gwen, anybody who can come in late and so forth. There's such an exciting opportunity that we had to go and have this experience. So I'm happy to be able to share this with friendly faces first before they make me go do this at the International Education Conference or whatever. So this is a good way to put it. So I guess I'll begin on saying that this is the result of the Faculty International Education Grant. And if anyone wants to know more information about that and how to apply and that sort of, I'd love to share that with you. The origins of my idea about where to go, just a few of my ideas, because anybody who knows me knows I think about lots of different things, you know. So some of them, when I teach chapter 6 on social transformation of society, on the next slide I'll show you, actually maybe I'll go ahead a little bit, I'll show you about the different kinds of societies, hunting and gathering, and then out of hunting and gathering societies then branched out horticultural and pastoral societies. And then with the dawn of civilization came with the plow and agricultural society. So I was really interested in these kind of societies and how many of them actually still exist in the world today. Approximately 2003, they were saying about 300 of these existed. So I was considering about what would it be like as the world is changing so rapidly, particularly with technology. They're not going to be any more of these kind of places, and so I wanted to have opportunity to go and see what it was like to live and be a part of a community. And so as I thought about the world, there was the Amazon, had some places, that seemed too scary for me, because that's like snakes and huge bugs and stuff. And then there was Africa, and it just seemed different to me, more appealing to me. So that's how I end up with that idea. Okay, so backwards here. As I wrote the grant, though, I had to say, you know, what is the benefit of this for myself and in my teaching? And I think it would be to teach social transformation. What does that actually mean? Culture change, culture lag, and how to engage students' imagination with stuff that's from the past but still current with the modern societies and how are they changing. So I thought, okay, well, we're going to Kenya, and the Maasai themselves are located in both Kenya and Tanzania, so I need to try to go to both places. And that was a little bit of a work, but the group I went through was able to do that for us. So I really appreciated that. And then as I'm processing this myself in the classroom would be, how am I going to use this and bring my stories and my travels alive for my students? And repeatedly, they say that's some of the favorite part of my class, is that they like to hear about my trips and what did I do. And so I need to get more organized. This kind of presentation allows me to do that, to get the photos in a theme where I can share those more readily for them to illustrate concepts and so forth. And ideally I'm going to internationalize my course, or perhaps it could become a study abroad type thing as we're redoing that. So I don't know where I'm going to totally go with this, but those were the ideas. So this is from the Hinsland sociological textbook that we're using right now, and this is in chapter 6, this graph, or this illustration, transformation of societies. And you can see that as technology increases, the societies evolve and change to where we've been in post-industrial society, basically the microchip, 1940s, and look where we are in less than 70 years. I mean, just the rapid change. Not all societies are going to go through a stage like this, because many of the, as you'll see in my photos, this pastoral society has elements of both of these here. So their transformation is not going to be anything the same like we have gone through in America. And then ideally, part of the whole concept is what happens is as we had more abundant food, then you had civilization, towns were bigger, you can sell, you can barter, because now food isn't your 100% pastime of trying to acquire that, so that you could trade, and with trade, you begin to see larger groups of people, and then a division of labor and different social statuses and different labor being more valuable than others. And you see division now between men and women's work and men's work. And then you're going to have wars, okay? And then the people are going to conquer you and they're going to enslave you in some groups. And then you see more inequalities, and then the people are going to pass down that wealth to their families and so forth. So this is part of a way larger concept that I'm going to frame my trip in underneath this umbrella of transformation. So the group we went to, the first day, when we were getting over jet lag, they bring us to Nairobi. And have anyone heard of the Sheldrick Elephant Orphanage before? I actually ended up with a sister-in-law who donates to this place already. And they get elephants 3 years and under, and only open from 12 to 1 each day, so we had to be there at the opening of this. And I would love, a whole nother series of photos. I don't have time today, but if you would like to ever see them, it was incredible. So these are just the playful group of elephants here, and they stage them back into, they have huge bottles. It took them 38 years to develop the right milk combination to imitate the mother's elephant milk in order for them to survive. They had a terrible survival rate. Now they do really well. Then we went to a giraffe orphanage, a giraffe center, and I got a kissing one too. I couldn't get that photo in here, but I just thought this was great, that blue tongue. So it was a great day to acclimatize, get over jet lag, and get us out of the city, which was kind of important because a lot of those countries aren't really safe right now. So I felt really comfortable with, getting out of Nairobi center. So to give you the context about where we were exactly, first of all, you've got East Africa over here. So that's a long way away. I can't remember how long our flight was, but it was a long time. And so I have people asking me all the time now, oh, were you where Ebola is? The answer is no, okay, because that's over here, okay? So I was very far away from where all that was, but still. And so it's part of East Africa, and East African nations is where Kenya is. So we flew into Nairobi here, and in a it's a safari vehicle, but this very bumpy vehicle, and we took this road toward Mombasa, which I've never seen anything like that in my life. It was kind of like an I-45, but with containers. It was like a train. They've made a train out of these on wheels. And we took a turn off into no man's land, and we end up here in this Marushi location is where the village was that we were going to be living with, called Simba Camp. And I learned about this through actually National Geographic Traveler magazine. A long time ago, I just earmarked about, hey, this would be a cool thing to go and do. And it made one of their 50 best trips of a lifetime. And a lot of people take their families and so forth. So if you want any information about that afterwards, I'd be happy to share that. But I also was really impressed with the director. Kakuta is the gentleman who helped us book the trip, and he came to the U.S. and got an American education in Washington, I guess, or Seattle area, and then went to graduate school in Vermont and sustainable society. So he went back to his country, which is an important thing because we have a concept called brain drain, where a lot of people leave their country, come to the United States or other countries for education, they don't go back. And that country suffers from that because their talent remains here, obviously because of money and other things that are incentivized. But so he goes back and forth, and he set up a 501c3 corporation that's here, and then his mission is that we would want to be agents of our change rather than victims of our change. And when I read that, I was like, this is a place for me, because this is someone who sees the reality of their people and then wants to influence it in a positive way. So when we arrive to the village itself, it truly was the warrior's house. This stone cabin was a bunkhouse originally, and it was a true warriors camp when they had warriors that were truly marching and protecting in the area, which is not the case now. So this was our little end of this cabin over here where we stayed, and it was rustic accommodations, and we had some frogs living in our toilet. That was, kind of disconcerting at times, and hot water was occasional and not very much, and so forth. So it was quite an adaptation. This was the community area where we gathered, and Ola means, the word means shade. So this is where we were in a wonderful season time for us. It was not rainy, it's their summer, it was their winter, I guess. And so it was hot, but nothing that Houstonians can't handle. So, but this was the shade area. He also had, the camp has several tents. So we had John Wayne tent, there was Hemingway, several other tents. I was so happy that I was not in the tent. I was very happy I was in the cabin. Every morning we would go out for bushwalks, and this was part of what they called their culture safari, was going out and walking with them. I was really a little bit anxious about this because obviously there's a lot of wild animals around there, but these guys, if you notice, this is one of the spears, and they made this for my husband. And they carried it, you know, like so, and I stayed really close to them because I didn't know what was going to jump out at me, and I know they can take care of that better than I could. They also had a big machete-looking thing on them, and then some kind of a club, and they carried it everywhere. All three of these items go everywhere they go. But what's funny is we're out there working in this bush, and it kind of reminds me of 290 between here and Austin. That's what the terrain looked like, you know, flat and pokey stuff. And then this guy on a motorcycle shows up, and he turned out to be the bigger brother of the warrior Quinny here, so that was funny. And one of the things we noticed was, one of the quotes that Kokuta gave me was that in the Western civilization, time dictates events. Time dictates events. But in this kind of society, events dictate time. So you're on a walk, but you don't really know when you're going to get back because it really depends on who you're going to encounter along the way. So there was no real time thing. So this is hard for Westerners because, you know, we don't have the time. So it was really refreshing, but also an interesting concept to ponder about how our life here is oriented all around time. So this is the back gate we're going out. Going on the walk here on our first day. Some of the people that we saw, school children in their uniforms, they would walk many, many miles oftentimes. Most of the students were on boarding school, but some of them, if they lived within like 5-mile range, they still walked there. Another lady we met, we saw her coming far away here. I just love these colors. You know, they just stand out from the landscape. And she arrived, it turned out to be a friend of his mother's. And what you can't see here is that she was going to sell her milk in the village, their goat milk. And so she's carrying looked like a gourd, a calabash. She was carrying that with her to sell. They also carried around these big, you talk about recycling, big, gigantic oil containers, like corn oil containers, those big yellow ones. And they carried their milk around in that too. So it's kind of interesting. You see this mixture of nature, calabash, and then you've got this, big, huge, gigantic plastic container they would carry around. And when we visited, we stand there, and they're such happy people. I mean, they laughed all the time. We have no idea what they were saying, but they were having a good old time. Maybe they were laughing at us. I don't think so, but everyone was positive and greeting everyone, and it was just fascinating. They were all very happy to see us. A lot of smiles, a lot of greeting. When they would say their greeting was supa, and if you said supa and you reach for them, you say ipa. So it would always be supa ipa in our greetings with each other. This is a Maasai house, and you can see they're very low profile, made with, mud and cow dung, because they're a pastoral society, so there's plenty of cow dung around. And we learned later on, I'll have some pictures that show what this looks like on the inside. Some of the nature that we saw as we were walking along, apparently this was a really big find, I had no idea, but this is a geranuk, and you see he's standing on his back legs, eating tree leaves. Apparently this is like a hard creature to see in the action, but I got that. We were hearing some really lion-sounding roars, and that turns out to be ostriches, which I also did not know. That there was a female somewhere, and the two males were obviously fighting over her. Zebras were really common. Wildebeests were very common. Giraffes were very common. What else? Lots of giraffes. Oh, and kudus we saw lots of too. Then one afternoon, after being out on our bushwalk, we'd come back for lunch, and they prepared lunch for us, and we had an interview time with the elders. So here's two elderly gentlemen of the tribe, and what they're showing here is the toothbrush. In a future slide, they're making toothbrushes. So there's a toothbrush tree, and they were whittling away with that big machete there, okay, and then you make the toothbrush. And then there's another, so he already got one in there, you know, he's doing, and they have beautiful teeth. I mean, of course, their diet is meat and milk. That's like 90% of their diet. And then they would be doing their toothbrush around. Also, you'll notice in this photo and in this photo and this one, and is he carried his snuff in his ear. Do you see this white circular thing here? And I got to tell you, it was really hard for me not to be distracted while this was going on, because I watch him like take this thing out, and I'm thinking, what is that? And then he, you know, unscrews it, and then I was like, is that like cocaine or what is that? You know, I was really freaked out. But I guess there's all kinds of snuff. I wasn't that familiar, but that's what it is. And then he snuffed, you know, and then he put the cap back on, and then put it back in his ear again. And it was just really hard for me to concentrate. So that was, I guess you could understand why, right? Another thing they were doing, though, there was long conversations about cattle, and here's my husband now, and this red cloth is called a shuka. Apparently in the older days they used to make it, but now it's commercialized, and these people do buy the cloth in Nairobi and other vendors. So they stick with obviously the red and the orange shades. They're distinctive in the landscape, and the animals recognize them too. All the wild animals and their animals, so that everyone knows who the Maasai are. They don't mess with them. They're a part of the landscape. Here they're showing us different tree barks that are used for different things. And even, I don't have a picture here, but there was also, they do strange things with elephant dung. They boil that because there's lots of herbs and trees and so forth in there, and they give it to pregnant women. It's supposed to help them with childbirth with the placenta. So I was kind of thinking I really wouldn't want to know what was in that tea. They make a lot of teas. Interesting conversation. They wanted to know things about us. One of the things was, since my husband farms corn and soybean, and he used to grew up on a dairy farm, so they had a lot of. They were really interested in, you know, how do we take care of our animals, and talked about like, you know, crossbreeding and illnesses, and so they really got into it. And that was an interesting part of the conversation, was learning about how Westerners do this. The cattle are everything to them. Their wealth, their whole livelihood, everything is attributed to that. So that's what they're wanting to talk about. I asked them some questions myself, though. I asked them, you know, in their lifetime, what kind of things have they seen change, and what particularly regarding roles and ceremonies and that sort of thing. They said there's less ceremonies now. They said now that since there's peace among the tribes, all of them peaceful in Kenya, there's not the need for the warrior in the same way before. So they're having to redefine how, when you're not fighting something, you know, how do you, in peacetime, how do you continue to retain your culture, particularly when that was so essential to that. So that was interesting. I asked them about their how do they feel about education. In Kenya, it's mandate K-12 education now. How has that affected them? And they were actually really positive about education, except for one thing. They noticed that now that the kids are going to school, that it was changing up the marriage ritual where they had arranged marriages. Now they were seeing somebody that you wouldn't normally see, but from across the bush land there. Now you're sitting right next to them in school, and a lot of their relationships are developing outside of that. They started to have teenage pregnancy, things they'd never have had before because of arranged marriage. So that was troublesome. So they saw education for being good on one hand, but also the things that were also causing problem within their society. They said that the rituals in terms of celebrations were less, again, because they're in school now from K through 12. So at different ages, different things would happen. Still, for the men, the circumcision ritual was a big deal, but it has to take place within school break now. So then there's healing issues. We won't go into all that, okay? But healing issues and how long, obviously you don't kill lions anymore because that's also changed. There were things that were part of their rite of passage that they've had to adapt to a new way of being. Let's see. I asked them about their long life. You know, I think this guy's in his 80s actually is what they think, what our guide thought. And this guy's in 70s. He looks real good. Why are they healthy? And they believe that it was because they've always been eating meat and the milk. They had no sugar in their diet. Very little fruit is anywhere on that bush area. Only recently did they have, from Mount Kilimanjaro, they've got tomatoes, onions, I saw and introduced is polenta and corn, and we all know what that does, right? We feed it to cattle to fatten them up, and it makes us fat too here in the United States. But so now they're seeing some different things, and they blame the health consequences of the illnesses that are new in their tribe on the diet and the change of diet. And I just thought that was interesting. I've always suspected that's stuff going on in our culture too. It's interesting to see. But they're supplementing because now they have more resources. They have more contact with outside, society. So they're trading where they never traded for foods before, because everything is their goat, their lamb, or their cows, and that's all right there with them. So to be bringing processed food is only a generation worth. We're at the toothbrush tree. So I showed you the toothbrush, so we're chopping it off there. Here's the toothpaste tree. They punctured it with the other end of the spear and dug in there, and then it does, sure enough, it looks just like pieces of white paste. So we put that on there and we everybody brush our teeth. Here is Tom down in a porcupine den. And in the past, porcupine quills were essential to them. He gathered some of these for me because the porcupine quills made the beads. So like on my bracelet here. Now these are commercial. They're made. Everything comes from China. They have China stuff too, beads. But originally that's how they gathered them. So this is kind of really a precarious thing to do, right? I mean, apparently there can be like hundreds of porcupines down in that den. So, and here we're at a termite mound, which was everywhere. And I can't remember what they told me they did with the termites. I'd have to look that out. But I just love it's just beautiful with all their bracelets and so forth. So they weren't afraid of any of that nature stuff. Then we went to the school. And so like I said, the K through 12 is mandated by Kenya, and the Maasai peoples together have agreed to do this for all of their students. And I'll give you some background a bit more about that later, but when we come in there, it's a bit shocking at first when you see how our schools look pretty good compared to what you see in other countries. But there'll be 3 to 4 at a desk. They were very shy, very excited to see us, eager eyes, but no one would ask us questions or anything like that. And so I just can only imagine how strange we looked to them standing there. Well, one point where a real chuckle happened is that the principal, this is the principal's office, by the way, and these trophies, they're loaned and passed around. There's not a permanent stuff. There's just not a lot of material things anywhere, actually. So they're really proud. There was one of their sports teams won here. But anyway, so this gentleman is this guy right here. He's going from classroom to classroom with us and introducing us, and then he would say the same thing that we said in English, but in their English, so we had to wonder about our accents then, because obviously we weren't speaking clearly. They needed to re-say everything that we said. And at one class, we went to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. At one point, we're kind of getting this spiel down, after, class number 2 or 3, and I guess I started the introduction, hi, who I am, and I'm from the United States, and I'm really glad to be here in your village and so forth. And I said, this is my husband, Ron. And all of a sudden they start cracking up laughing. Just hee. I mean, they just won't stop. I'm like, I wonder what was so funny about that. Well, later on we get to find out that culturally, first of all, a woman would never introduce her husband. So I don't know if he got dissed or what by me doing that, but also they were fascinated because they don't see their mother and father even in the same room. At home only, like not out and about. They don't do a lot of things together. So this was, I violated all kinds of cultural norms by introducing my husband, and it was really funny. But we kind of wondered what was about us. I was like, oh dear, what have I done? What have I said? Most of them are boarding schools, and this is the girls' dormitory. 50 bunk beds were in here. 100 of them. They got their shoes up in the rafters here. 2 young ladies stayed behind since I knew we were coming to clean the place up. So it's very small, very close quarters. In order to come to school, they have to bring their bowl, is one of the things that the parents have to supply for them. And here is the chef cook guy. Kind of remind me of Macbeth, stirring double trouble here. And this is sort of like a hominy and a cracked wheat. Again, that's new to their diets, but they needed to be able to feed the students. So that's also part of their going to school. The meal is included. Here is an important symbol they're taking their shield and their sword and changing the meanings. For instance, rather than the spear being about fighting, it's now a pencil, okay, that it's through education. So I've got another slide where I'll point out all the differences here. So this community has a mindset of, we want to control the change, we want to adapt the way that we can, we want to retain our culture amongst the changes in the world. The families in the village live in something called a boma. And this would be the acacia thorn bushes that go all the way around. Normally this is one family grouping. You may see a couple of houses in there, but you'd be the same family group, not like a village group. And this keeps the lions and other animals out, and also the corral your own animals inside there. So they'd always have the animals in with them, and then they'll block the gate. Just some scenes where we're walking along out there, meet some other colorful people to chat with for a while. The women tend to take care of the goats and the sheep at home, and when we were there, it was dry season, so the men had the cattle really far away, so we didn't see a lot of cattle, only small amounts. Little girl here is using her tin cup and milking the goat, and then carrying it over to her grandmother, who had that big plastic container I was telling you about, and she's pouring her milk into that one by one. Something we learned, my husband grew up on a farm, I had no idea, but he keeps them still. This little boy right here is holding the goat's ear. So just in case you ever need to know that, if you hold the goat's ear, the goat will be still. And you can milk the goat, in case you ever need that tidbit. And then just some of the kids, they're so sweet. They're just so happy to see other people. And you see a lot of American clothing. You kind of wonder how you get this mixture of, one of the gals coming up in another photo, she's got like a Nike sweatshirt on, and then on top of her dress. So you see a lot of different culture diffusion, of different things there. The kids, their sign of respect is they'd always give you their head. So as they approached you, they'd always bend down, and they expect you to touch their head. So there's no hand greeting, and that was a signifying of respect to an adult. So we had to do a lot of head touching. Other cultures, that is a no-no. You would not touch a child's head, so that's really interesting. Some of the cattle, little burrows, just some of the things we saw when we were walking along, literally all the time, walking. This is the weaver nest, so the snakes can't get in there to get the baby's eggs. Bird eggs are down in here. Acacia thorn bush, this is a whistling acacia. It had a really nice sound, very, very painful as you walk by and it snags you. Another day we went, had an opportunity to visit with the women of the village. They came to that area where the olap was, the shade area, and they came in quite a few of them, like in this photo here, a bunch of them, ladies came and their daughter, and they brought their beadworking with them. And they've only recently been able to start recapturing this art, because a lot of their day was spent gathering water or gathering firewood. And then taking care of animals. So it's only been recently they got a well on the premises. It's changed the life of the entire village. First of all, it's eliminated that serious drought. They could feed their animals. It has really changed their life, because now they have free time, because they're not only going to the village short ways rather than going very far away. And so they've brought this up as supplement their income. So here I am modeling some of these. I really didn't see what I was going to wear these things. I can see wearing bracelets, but I really had fun trying all that stuff on. And so here's the group of women that I was able to talk to. Some of the questions I really would have liked to ask, we really weren't there long enough, and the male was a translator, that was a male translator. I would have needed a female translator to ask some of the things that I wanted to ask and learn about the women. It just wouldn't have been culturally appropriate. They wouldn't have been able to tell me. I really would like to have known about the continued role of female circumcision in their society. Its persistence and why, because it's technically illegal in their culture, in the country, but we know it still exists, but it would have been totally inappropriate. So I had a lot of things. Guess I'll have to go back another time, find me someone who speaks English and Ma at the same time. But it was really a delightful visit. I asked them about their day, what they did every morning. They have really long days, making chai tea in the morning where their kids to get off, and then the animals, and then what they did all day long into the evening time. I asked them about education and what they thought about education, and it was similar to the male elders that I interviewed. They felt like it was a good thing. They wanted choices for their daughters, and particularly they talked about their daughters. You know, what do you see different, and what would you want to change? And they want their daughters to have choices. Now, I wasn't able to get out all the way what those were, you know, what they felt choices were, but definitely being able to go to school in general was an amazing choice for them to have. So I've got a lot of detailed notes on that. Really interesting interview. Some more of their wares here that they were selling. This is Tom, our guide, and this is his mom. We ended up going to her, and this is her goats, and we'll end up going into her house a little bit later. This is Kakuta, the actual the guy from the U.S. that helped us arrange our trip. That's his mom too. So we learned everybody was related in some way, you know, cousin, parent, or so forth. So I just thought with Kawini there, they stand out with their beautiful colors. So now we're going to enter this house right here, the Maasai house. And there would be modern houses, somewhat modern anyway, off to the side for the younger generation, but the older people continue to want to live in this kind of house. Now you notice there's plastic here. That's newer. In the old days, and it's the women's job, even in a rainstorm, to go and get the cow dung and the mud and to, you know, put on the house. My husband had a really fun time with that, thinking that would be a good thing for me to do, and you know what I told him, right? So we had a lot of amusing role-changing things. But here they are drinking their tea after the end of the day. We go into the house. This is Tom's grandmother's house. So the lady is actually in there. She's being cared for. The fire's right in the middle. Do you see how smoky that is? Some of their ailments really are lung ailments. And I can totally understand why. Seeing this picture and being in there, we thought we were going to choke to death. This is the bed we laid down, so to show you that it's actually deeper in there than I thought it was. These two columns supporting it. The fire is right in front. There's a peephole over here in the that lets some fresh air in, but it's not like you really had a what do you call it, a chimney. There wasn't like an official chimney. That smoke is just all in there, so very interesting. It did have a wind. The way that they enter the door, and they situate the doors so that the wind wouldn't blow directly inside. So we do a night walk. So we walked in the morning, we walked at night. And we'd go to the highest place they had around there and do sunsets, and it was incredibly gorgeous. You can see Kilimanjaro here in the background. It didn't want to show itself every day that we were there, but it's a beautiful mountain. Another picture of a boma, some more sunsets, and then Kawini is teaching my husband how to handle the spear. All right, so then we went on to schools. This is the high school. I showed you the primary school. This is the high school, and he'd received some money and a grant to do a biology lab. And so the biology lab, as you can see, is quite primitive here. This is the storeroom. I was trying to figure this out, what kind of biology they were doing prior, actually. Not really sure. Here's another one of those containers. This one's not yellow, though. So we were just in awe. This is they were gone for a long break. There's like a 5-day break the high school students were on between exams. There's no lights in here, okay? This chalkboard is thin. And it was hard. They couldn't even clean it, even though they're cleaning it. They're writing on top of this repeatedly. Yeah, it was interesting to see how much learning goes on without all the stuff that we have and that we would like to have here. Later on, I'll show you a picture after it's done. But this was a really huge project for them. All right, then on to one of my personal favorites besides students is the health center. And this is also only in all of this came about in the last 7 or 8 years that their 501c had been able, and they've some other NGOs they work with have been able to have enough money to really make changes for their village. So we go to they have a van, and they had a very high infant mortality rate. They're not really sure, and I was talking to the clinic administrator, but there was the women had trouble with the placentas, so they weren't getting the placenta out. So they started a program where they would come and get you while you were in labor, and then bring you to the health clinic. You deliver the baby. It's all 24 hours because they don't want to be away from home. I mean, culturally they wanted to be back home, but they were trying to intercede on trying to increase health outcomes here. So if you go into I can see maybe why you might want to go. This is the birthing room. Any of you ladies in here who have given birth before, how's that look? And then this is a regular patient room, patient bed. This is literally their pharmacy, this cabinet. I did go over there and get a little bit closer, so it's primarily antibiotics and some pain meds, and then I'm drawing a total blank right now. Mosquito, what's that disease? Malaria, yes, malaria medication. Just jumped ahead. Okay, here is no HIPAA laws over there. The triage and intake area. How about that? So everyone's signing in the book here. And this is the clinical officer. He was a really delightful guy. Had trained in Mombasa, so they don't really have, I think he'd be kind of like a physician's assistant probably, is what we would, and he is so excited to be there and be still part of the community. Again, the community is trying to keep their people, to resist brain drain, get their people to come back and be a part and help with the welfare of their people. So here is a lady who just come back in the morning from the well, and she's got her small group of cattle here. We just see the termites were everywhere. And we had the front gate. I showed you the back gate before when we left, but the welcome and the signage is very modern in some of the signs that they had there. This gentleman would always greet us, and one of the things that the Maasai are known for is jumping. They do a lot, and they're very tall, and they do this jumping, and it was really excited to, every time we'd enter, they would always be jumping. So here's Koini, our guide, in full garb, and he has a cell phone. So I thought this was a great example of culture diffusion right here. Now, he doesn't have a smartphone, okay? He has his regular cell phone, although I saw him text, and he had gone to school and spoke English, but a lot of the texting is new. If you think about it, you have to be able to spell to text, right? So it was something that was slower to catch on until you had a generation of kids that went to school, right? Then could read or write. So now it's exploding. They're all getting these cell phones. And this is the day that we were leaving to head out. Our guide, our driver, our cook, what was amazing, he had gone to chef school in Nairobi and cooked amazing meals that all of them were delicious. And then our guides, and then Kukuta, who's the camp is on. And here's my trekking with Trevor. I did win, by the way, one of the prizes, which was most creative, so I have to top the Maasai warrior here. This is the drying of the clothes. Those are acacia bushes, and I just thought this was fascinating because that was their natural clothesline, was hanging their clothes on those spiky spurs out there. And then we go away to Tanzania and come back, and when we came back, this was everyone in full garb in the Hilton Hotel there. I thought that looked kind of, otherworldly, right? Coming together. He's immune to it. He just walked around. We're just in downtown, and no big deal. All right, then quickly. So that was about 6 or 7 days of our experience was there, and then they handed us over. Drove us to the Namengo border to Tanzania, and now we're going to see our guide there. Our driver is going to be another Maasai, and I get to start making some comparisons, which were quite different. So we go to the Ngorongoro, Tanzania. This is a crater, a famous crater with an alkaline lake down there. It was just gorgeous. We stayed on the top of the crater. The Maasai are only allowed to be on the top of the crater. They're allowed to graze their cattle down in the crater itself, but they can't live there. Only the wild animals are allowed to live there. So it looks kind of romantic, doesn't it? It's kind of a rustic here on our tent and all that, and we had a little stove, and another one of the Maasai warriors would come and help start that for us, which I was very thankful for. This is this dense forest here. It was cold. It was really cold, and you would hear the elephants screaming. It was really scary sound. They apparently, if they get a whiff of a human being, even though it might be like you're 20 or 30 miles away, it drifts across that crater, and then they'll scream in protection for their child. So it was beautiful and scary at the same time. There was a lot of coffee country right nearby too, and we went for a walk. Always, at all times, we always had a warrior with us. They know how to make the wild animals go away and not hurt them. So their role now in society in both countries really is that they're caretakers of the animals. They've kind of become game wardens. So they've gone from being a warrior in terms of fighting with other groups. Now that they have peace, that their role is to be the conservationists. And so that's a serious, very different change. They're recognized, they know how to get them out of the camp. That night we heard definitely elephants, hyenas, and other things tromping in the camp. We were never allowed to leave our tents at night. You had a bell or a whistle. They had to come get you, always escort you. Here's some of the beautiful things we saw there. The Maasai grazing their cattle down on the crater. The wildebeest, there were tons of them. Hyenas, and this lion looked me straight in the eye. Yeah, he was only about 5 feet from us. So, here, kitty. Then as we drove further into Tanzania, we got to see some markets. I just thought these colors were, and there's a lot of beds. Beds were really popular. There's a lot of woodwork, and so a lot of people were buying that. Here in Tanzania, the villages are different. They have more families inside the same boma, and notice the boma is made of sticks. It's not made of the acacia trees again. Also, there were some other tribes around that weren't Maasai, and their houses were different. They had thatch huts, different grouping. These folks were not pastoralists. They were working the coffee farms. So they were a different kind of work. And of course, the Maasai think these folks are inferior because, cattle is number one for them. Also, the rites of passage, they don't have K through 12 education mandatory in Kenya, so you've got a lot of kids just wandering around. That's the first thing that struck me. They're just out literally on roads and streets. But this marking was really interesting. And so this is if I took notes properly, that when they're about 15, 16, they have to go away for 6 months and survive on their own, and then they come back, have a circumcision ritual, and then they would become adults in the group. So if you don't survive for 6 months, I guess you don't come back, and I'm not sure where they would go, but they've learned to survive quite easily because when you take a picture, they want money. Okay, so I thought it was a pretty good adaptation to survival. This lady too. This area is around the Olduvai Gorge. This is where the Leakeys did their famous discoveries of man. Let's see, Lucy was found here and so forth. So that's the area that we were in, was that part of Tanzania. There's only one road in and one road out. You have to go through that crater, and you're in that park for a long time until Serengeti National Park. There's no real fence here or anything. There's a gate, an entrance, and that's it. And the Maasai cannot go into Serengeti. So you see a lot of, not in this photo, but out to the side, there was a lot of people kind of lingering around that were the Tanzania Maasai, but they did not. They were not allowed to go into to the Serengeti. Wild animals only. Isn't that pretty? I got that scenery one night. So here's our third abode while we were on this trip. This one's pretty high class, I was thinking. So we have our tent. This was how we got to the tent. I had no idea. Thank God you have guides on these kind of tours. Here is the bed looks pretty nice. This was a luxury tent camp, they said. And our shower, and that is the water system for the shower. They would ask when we come back in from safari, would we like a shower? And then they would go heat it up, and then they would bring it and dump it into these bags, and you had less than 5 minutes. So I had to learn how to do this fast. It's really, I don't know that I ever got really good at it. I don't think I was clean for a long time, but I thought that was nice. So here's some of the dining tent, and several of the chefs. Superb, the food. You were not starved on this trip. This was a great trip. And of course, we had our own Maasai warriors here too. Not just our guide, but this gentleman, again, to shoo the animals out of the camp and everything. That was his job. He stayed up all night long. And he was putting out a fire. One of the heating up the water things caused a fire, and you talk about fearsome. Thank goodness he came over there and quit that right away. Here's the power source. We charged our computers and cell phones to take picture via this in the tent. And then this was a early morning drive we went on where a balloon, somebody had paid for a balloon launch over the animals, and that was pretty nice. So here's a big 5. We have a rhino. We were really lucky to see this guy when we first entered the park. He was apparently lost. He wasn't really supposed to be in that quadrant at all. Here's a leopard. So excited to see them. Actually saw 3 leopards. Elephants. Here are our, what do we call those things? Drawing a blank. Water buffalo. and then the lion. Again, look how close we are to these guys. Cheetahs, crocodiles. This one's an impala. Hat beast. Topi. They have blue leggings. It looks like they have blue jeans on. Mama giraffe, baby giraffe nursing on the mom. Baboons. Let's see, Grant's gazelles. These are called dicks. This guy was right outside our tent, and he hung around our tent. All kinds of guinea fowls. So it was amazing, the trip was. So in looking at Tanzania, it was really a lot of differences compared to Kenya. So even though I didn't live with them in Tanzania, their structure, their social structure, and the lack of education, a mandatory education, really had an impact on the differences we saw between the same grouping in different countries. And so here I have the biology lab. He sent me this photo recently, complete. You saw the earlier. So that's a real transformation in there. It will serve for 25 students to be able to do biology and a little bit of chemistry, apparently, he said too. So some of the recycling and resourcefulness I saw, all of the warriors would walk around with this sandal on, and I got one here from recycled motorcycle tire. So it's not really comfy. I think I need an extra wide motorcycle tire, or you have to wear it down, but it keeps those thorns from poking through when we were on our hikes and so forth like that. I also brought some of my big 5 here I had carved out, and we got our spear as well. So I guess my thoughts at the end here are just going to be, what am I going to do with all this? And there's a lot of information, and I'm still kind of processing it other than organizing the pictures. It's really an incredible experience to be there and see that, and then be a part of seeing the changes that are first world and, a pastoral society in one place. And I can only imagine that if I go back in 5 years, how much change will actually be there. It should be incremental between education and technology. I bet it won't even look the same. So the idea that they're trying to hold on to it themselves and instrument change themselves from the inside, I think will be what will make this group very different than other pastoral societies. So that's all I have. Do you have questions or comments, or want me to go back to something? Yeah.
Maybe I missed it. I didn't hear you talk about rescue facilities. What do they have?
Well, we were fortunate in our little, my tent camps, they did have like latrines. I had toilets. We really had toilets. They put them for, I did see latrines, more of a like porta potty looking, and I've seen those in other countries too. There's a lot of people like donating those, but that's an interesting comment. I'm thinking about that little house that I showed you. I don't think I remember seeing. Do you remember seeing? Yeah, I don't think. That's a really good question. I mean, I saw the porta potty, so I made assumptions, and then I saw where they lived. Our guides actually were living in more of a more modern house, and I say that loosely, but I mean something that we would think of as being a house. I know I did see a restroom facility outside schools that looked like something in our public parks, concrete building. I did see those, but I didn't see them throughout the village. I saw them in the parks, and I saw them at schools and at the health center. Yeah, because you're right, because hygiene would be a big deal here in the water table and all that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You did mention some of them have wells now to get the...
Yes. The watering holes have all dried up, the natural ones. So through the money in the NGOs, they've brought major wells about every 10 miles, I think he said. So you still have a far ways to go, but in this village, it was right where we were. So we got to see the ladies taking their cattle and walking down the dry riverbed over to the well. I mean, he said that has made all the difference in the world, because people were starving when their cattle died, and that's their only means of, prior to even introducing the idea of doing crafts and that sort of thing. So everything was reliant upon having water. What else? Anybody want to go with me on 5 years and go back?
The cooking is mainly on open stove?
Yes. They'd always have a separate building outside there, another hut, and everything is, let's see, there's open fire, so this is his own thing. even where we would stay, there would always, the kitchen is its own tent or its own hut, and I can't believe the kind of meals they cook, gourmet meals on rocks and pots. Yeah, I really thought that I was going to starve to death and lose weight on this trip, and it didn't happen. They had really good food. Yep.
So are you familiar with the CNN show that stars Anthony Bourdain?
Yes.
So it's so funny, this weekend there was an episode about the Maasai and his time with the Maasai.
Really?
It opened with, this really got my attention, that they have 3 main things that they eat. So I wondered if this is,
Okay.
if you can corroborate this or if he's, being sensational. But they drink blood.
They do.
Blood?
Less than they used to. They actually nicked the cattle neck, and they kind of made fun for us because they knew that it was going to be, they were socialized enough to know that was probably going to be shocking to us, but not to me because I'd read about it. But they called it Maasai milkshake.
Oh my God.
So they actually add the blood to the either the goat's milk or the cow's milk. And he says that in their village, ceremonial only.
So they said blood, and then they showed this really funny yogurty mixture that doesn't look like it just came out of a refrigerator. It looks
Right.
chunky. And then they talked about other forms of protein and meat, but the statement was because they drink the blood and they eat the yogurty stuff and they get their protein from whatever other sources, that they can run and do all these amazing things physically.
And they're all skinny. They're all thin. They had beautiful teeth and bones. Yeah, I asked about the broken bones because I was thinking about the protein, but I was also thinking about if we had that kind of milk and meat in our diet, the kidney stones, and there would be a lot of other things. They didn't appear to. I didn't hear about it anyway. Yeah, but that's authentic. So it's just recently they added they didn't even like anything sugar. There's nothing sweet there at all. We had tomatoes. Anything sweet was cooked for us. It's not their diet at all. And they made pancakes and all kinds of more normal Western foods for us. We ended up being the only couple, well, the only 2 people at that camp because of the things that have been going on with Kenya and West Africa in general. It scared a lot of people away. And I registered. Of course, the FIE says you have to, and I got updates. And so the important thing was just to get out of Nairobi, and so where we were. But it scared a lot of people away. So we ended up with a private tour. So it was really cozy, very, very intimate at times, but they're just such kind and happy and jovial people, and it wasn't uncomfortable. But at first I'm thinking just the 2 of us and like a whole staff taking care of you seemed a little bit, pretentious in a way, but it wasn't. It was a really authentic, I think, experience. And I think, Ron and I have talked about, could I bring students back to that? Those kind of thoughts, I think that place would be a safe and good experience. I don't know, by the time we got in that van and went over to Tanzania and all that, Tanzania was a whole different feeling to me, even from the, being stopped by police and with machine guns and, those kind of things. So I didn't talk about all that here, but there was some other challenges that crossing borders entails that you don't deal when you just go to one country. So what else? Has anybody else learned about the Maasai before or seen them prior to this? No? Everyone's shaking their head. I can't believe.
Yeah.
Wait, okay. I know a lot of people thought we were kind of crazy, for going out there, but I don't know. It really was an experience of a lifetime. We travel a lot, so it wasn't on one hand very, but I'd never been to this part of Africa before, and I definitely had never lived in those kind of facilities and so forth. So.
How do they start the fires? Do they have matches or do they have?
I did have matches. I noticed that they keep one going at all times. There's always a kitchen fire. So I noticed bomb fires in Serengeti. We had that. But most of the fire was just in the kitchen. And we were there in fair winter, but was plenty warm. So we didn't have to have, I thought we got eaten up by mosquitoes too, and I didn't have too many mosquitoes, because the fire is good for that too, to be near there at night, and didn't really see that. And I think in that hut, that fire is constantly going in there, in the Maasai houses themselves, because they're doing there's usually there's an older woman usually inside there at all times. I didn't know that. I thought they were empty, but there's always somebody inside there. It's really interesting. What else? Let's see, what was weird? I knew someone would have to bring up about the Maasai milkshakes. They're so humorous. Also, they call giraffes Maasai skyscrapers. as we see them. So they made all these like fun analogies to try to relate to us too, and we appreciated that. So now I'm going to take all this information and think about it some more and look at all the notes I took and kind of see where I can go with this. It's easy to incorporate this in my classes. That part is not hard at all because of just the topics that come in, that I can talk about culture change and the differences and what I've seen and technology and all of that. And then of course the animals alone are their own thing. The intricacy between the animals and the people was really fascinating because I really thought before I went, yeah, they're people of the cattle, but they're probably, I don't know, I thought their role would be they'd have to kill lions or something like that. I hadn't really thought of the fact that they've really had a total conversion of what their role is in the bush, and now they become park rangers and they protect the people and they protect the animals. So that's a whole different role for them.
If the cattle are there and the lions are close by, they have to make sure they're protecting them.
They do.
The lion, right?
Yes. I stayed with the guy with the knife, with the spear the whole time. We saw them close up, but always in a car. It looked to me that what came into the park a lot was anywhere we were elephants. They're crazy. I mean, elephants were just running. They run everywhere, and hyenas, a lot. So we did hear. They didn't have to tell me twice about staying inside. If you told me, I didn't come out. I didn't come out. You told me I could come out. Then I'll come out again. So, but I did feel safe with them. And I just really liked how their role was not just defensive, it was offensive. I mean, they really were trying to manage things and keep us safe, but also keep the animals safe because they respect the animals. Or animals respect them for the most part, their cattle, except for the lions would attack, and kill somebody's cow. Then, there'd be retribution. I didn't have to see any of that, but I had heard of that. So it'd be.
You've seen snakes?
I heard that there was a black mambo a couple rock piles over from one of our, but I did not see one, thank God. I was happy to not having to photograph that one. Those are dangerous. I mean, I'm not the biology, I'm sociology, remember? So, I mean, my whole angle is the people interacting with the animals, but the animals are just so beautiful. You can't separate the two because that's who they are in there now. So, and that was just a little snippet. So I've got tons of elephants and tons of other, some other time when you want to just look at amazing African animals, let me know and I'll show you my photographs on that. Anything else? No? Nobody's thinking about it? Well, I thank you so much for coming and letting me share my adventure with you. And if you want to know anything else, I'd be happy and come see my stuff and my jewelry. And be fine to tell your students if you want me to talk about something ever or show use any of my photos for that. I would be happy to share with you or know about the FIE grant. Any of that, I'd be happy also to do that anytime. Yeah, thank you.